Hello to all. I'm here today in the Tier 8 Premium American Light Cruiser, the USS Montpelier. This is the premium offering to the Tech Tree Tier 8 Light American Cruiser, the USS Cleveland, and is functionally identical. Anyhow, we're here today on the map Trap, and the mode is Domination. Now, starting off, sorry, I'm just going to have to pull this up because my client is windowed for some odd reason. Anyhow, with that said, starting off on the match here, we are here in 6 to 8 matchmaking on Trap. With Domination, I'm here with my div mate Lord Ion in the Blood of Allstock, but we're not going to be playing together too much. Anyhow, we're top tier against a Ranger, North Carolina, Monarch, Tirpitz, Colorado, Ismail, so not too scary in terms of battleship lineup. Some annoying ships like the Ismail and Tirpitz, which are a bit thicker in armor, able to shatter my IFHE 152s, but otherwise nothing too troublesome. And then also at Baltimore, an Albemarle, the upcoming British heavy cruiser, now kind of in early access. And then a New Orleans, Helena, La Galissonière, and a Mahan. At the beginning of the match, we can see here the Furious, the Tier 6 British Tech Tree aircraft carrier, coming in with some planes, just sectoring the course, trying to put some damage onto him, but sadly unable to put any damage out. Looks like I missed a little bit on my actual sector for that bit of burst damage. But as someone takes some pot shots at me from a distance, taking a small amount of damage, light cruiser hull of course, so especially when broadside like so, sorry for that frame stutter there. I do tend to take damage. My armor is not thick enough to auto-bounce anything, and especially at that flat angle, it looks like those Tirpitz shells that skinned me were able to inflict some damage, taking another 450 damage over penetration, so that was probably from the Albemarle's AP. Anyhow, on Trap, with the Cleveland, of course, I'm an American light cruiser, or Montpelier rather, as an American light cruiser. I do want to try and approach the gap and potentially make use of my radar, but more importantly I want to find some cover. As I slide into range and into the gap above B, Tirpitz does briefly get spotted and take a shot before I in turn get spotted before he passes out of cover and get our opening salvos. Albemarle also pops up, so we're going to take our time, try and fire from cover as the Montpelier does like to do. A bit underlet on my Albemarle salvo sadly, so I do end up missing. But as you can see here, I'm just slowing down to make use of natural cover. No need to glide out into the open. From this position, I'm maintaining control of half the cap and providing air cover and radar cover for my allied Akatsuki, which is making an attempt on the cap. Ranger approaches with torpedo bombers, so I'm gonna just bring the accelerator up, bring myself up to speed in case I have to dodge. Sector is appropriate, although it looks like he is attempting to blind drop my Akatsuki. He is, however, going to be unsuccessful. Oh, the torps were actually from my div mate. But bow in from that position. He is able, of course, to easily dodge the shells. In the meantime, I'm still firing on the Tirpitz. My AA suite, which, well, not particularly special, is pretty good for Tier 8. The Cleveland has excellent anti-aircraft capabilities for her tiers, so a Tier 6 carrier, such as the Furious, is easily shredded. Kind of jerking my camera around here, as you can see in the scope. This is a replay, of course, so you can't actually quite see the full extent of my reticle, but you can see me here kind of manually guiding the crosshairs onto the target as necessary. So that's a bit jerky here, but I am probing for a target while trying to stay in cover. But there is a relative lack of spotting, just because my Akatsuki was in quite tight while he was taking the cap. The island in the middle of B on Trap, of course, preventing us from getting too much information, but I am getting much shots I can over the island from my very safe position. Haven't landed too much in the ways of damage yet, but we can see now a Monarch creeping out from cover. And so the Monarch is a perfect target for the Montpelier or Cleveland, because it's coated in 32mm of plate. As a British battleship outside of its belt armor, it's basically covered completely in 32mm of armor, and thus my IFHE 152s essentially can penetrate him all over the hull with 152mm HE, unless it hits the turrets, so you can see a very low number of shatters so far. Mostly just not full penetrations every salvo, just trying to light him a fire. Get my second fire on the forward superstructure. Looks like this guy's not running fire prevention for some reason. I'm just continuing to safely farm him from range, accelerating just slightly to increase the distance by a little, which will cause me to increase my lead, but at the same time will allow me to arc my shells over this mountain as appropriate. Behind him, you can see that he does have some buddies coming up, but I'm going to make sure I dispatch this Monarch first. He has put out his fire, but he's fairly low and dodging interference from my allied carrier's torpedoes, so next few salvos should put him down. Looks like this salvo should be done, and from here, I was basically never spotted, collect my first blood, and I can move on to the New Orleans. And after that, the Baltimore, both of these enemy cruisers pushing recklessly into the cap. So obviously not the best decision here. As a top tier light cruiser, I'm just able to deal enormous amounts of damage. The Montpelier, just like the Cleveland, has a rather short reload, 7 seconds in my case compared to the Cleveland's 6.5, although I do have a superior 2.15 Sigma. New Orleans looks like he's going to be the next victim. He's trying to get into hard cover, but with my high shell arcs, I'm going to easily be able to clean him up. I slide a bit too far out forward. Note here the Ismail's position. If he does turn to look at me, I can be punished since he was briefly in the gap, but as he slides behind that rock, I'm again once more in full concealment. Shooting at the Baltimore, obviously I'm a little less successful with my first few salvos, kind of finding the range as he turns out and away, but eventually I do find him, collect my defended ribbons to defend the cap as well. Baltimore covered in 27mm plate, slightly more heavily armored than me. He's my heavy cruiser counterpart at tier 8. He's covered in 27mm plate as opposed to my 25. He's firing on my allied Vladivostok, who is pushing just a little bit into the cap. However, my allied Vladivostok, my div mate here, does have to watch his angles. Note that the Albemarle and Turpets have made their way north. The bulk of the enemy team is south, of course, at A, as you can see, so I've been encountering very little resistance. They did have a pack of, 3 cruisers and a battleship above the cap that were initially with the Turpets and Albemarle, but when they made their decision to move into the cap, it doomed 3 of them. Still continue to just occupy this gap position as long as there's something in range. There's no reason not to go anywhere else, but as the Baltimore is leaving my effective range of 15.6 kilometers, best to just switch off. So I'm only just now, once the targets are starting to dry up, moving away from cover. B has been slightly contested, but mostly in our control, and then C has been pretty firmly in our control. The Turpets and Albemarle not that able to inflict damage. Now my div mate's going to head off south to the real fight. He is taking a rather small force with him, but on the other hand, because I was above the B cap, I'm just going to move up into C cap and take my fast firing 152s and clean up the Turpets and Albemarle. Now the Turpets is fairly well armored as a German battleship. His extremities are still penetratable 32mm plate, but as you move inward toward the center of his ship, he is covered in more 40 and 50mm plates, so as a result you'll note that I have a much higher ratio of shatters. Right now I'm only firing with my front guns, angling of course against his rifles. Turpets has 381mm guns, which basically pen anything other than my belt armor. In terms of the Cleveland Montpelier, I am covered in those soft plates. Trying to eliminate him first, however, because he is placing my div mate in a crossfire, so I'm doing my best to help him out. Now, it would have been ideal for the Turpets to be dead by the time I come out here, but it's not too much trouble. I'm quite close, note, so he could potentially have torpedoed me. But in the meantime, I have closed the range on this Albemarle. Pop my Hydro probably a bit late, probably should have popped a little bit early. Tried a speculative AP salvo, but he was quite bow in, as you saw there. But now as the Albemarle turns to show his broadside, the British heavy cruisers do actually have quite a large citadel. I did dodge the Albemarle's torpedoes in addition, so I'm fairly safe now, just maintaining my forward angle to avoid his AP from wrecking me. He has 203mm rifles, and his AP does not have any improved pen angles or anything like that, but if I get broadside, I'm going to be punished. But he himself has a high citadel, so as a result, some timely switching to armor piercing against a cruiser at close range allows me to, well, quite frankly, citadel him to death for my 4th kill. We've climbed quite a bit, but as you can see, the force we sent to ACAP has been quite stymied. My div mate sadly did take quite a large amount of damage from the ensuing crossfires, so unfortunately he was dispatched. One of the Helenas that he was shooting at, well, trying to hold on to B, does recklessly push into the cap at very low health, so with some HE it's a simple matter of shooting at him even with my floaty 152mm shells. Because he's kind of moving toward me, I'm able to collect him quite quickly for my 5th kill and my Kraken. Now, the cap is still ticking, and there's also a La Galissonière on the side, so I know that the enemy destroyer is in the cap. I see both the other 2 battleships. The carrier is not going to be that close, so I know quite clearly that it's a Mahan. Now, using the Akatsuki in the north side of the cap, my allied Akatsuki that is, I can kind of triangulate his position. The Akatsuki has a 6.4 kilometer detection radius, which is about a square out, so I know he's in the rear half of the cap. And indeed, you can see him rounding the corner there against my Akatsuki. Unfortunately, I cannot actually fire upon him myself at this point, so I am going to instead engage the La Galissonière, who is fast approaching us. We're going to round the corner, going to see what I can do against him. He's a little bit angled, but I'm going to speculatively switch to my HE. Kind of wish I had my Hydro still from the last engagement because he does have a pair of torpedoes per side, but hopefully we'll be able to dodge them. As you can see, he does angle away, however, so my AP quite easily bounces. Enemy carrier in the meantime sending some speculative torpedo bombers after me, using my HE on the La Galissonière, but I am going to try and maintain my angle. The Cleveland, however, does have excellent gun angles, firing AP into him, but you can see that French spaced armor kind of eating my shells in that black hole armor. Try my AP again once more, he's still pretty flat. There's the Furious torpedo to the left and the La Gal torpedoes to the right. Try AP one last time, it doesn't really seem to be working that well, so I'm going to switch to my high explosive instead, which obviously, as you can see, produces some immediately superior results with 10 shells gliding and a fire. Furious continuing to harass me. I'm going to just stick with the HE. You can see on the side the Mahan is shooting me, so I am just slowing up in order to dodge any potential torps that he might have launched at me earlier, as I was at full speed closing with the Mahan, or with the La Galissonière. I am able to dodge out on the Mahan last set. He has 2 wing torpedo tubes and a centerline tube, of course, like many of the mid-tier Americans. And at this range, of course, I am very easily going to be able to dispatch the Mahan. I probably should have popped my hydroacoustic here just to be safe in case he got any torps off at the end, but it's not too bad. Up to my 7th kill and 44,000 damage. Pretty simple game. Gonna try and go for my 8th kill here with the Colorado. The Colorado is a tier 7 American battleship, and as such is coated primarily in 25mm plate, which means of course my HE pens him all over. So even though he's showing quite a bit of broadside, and I could probably be penning him quite significantly, much safer again just to use the HE. On the side, as I'm harassing Colorado, we see the Furious sending with some torpedo bombers, so just simply going to sector and slow up. Now, my primary threat here is, of course, the Colorado. He has 406s, but you can see his guns are not turned at me at all, so that's why I'm giving a fair bit of broadside. You saw earlier, even against the La Galissonière, I was initially angling quite heavily in order to avoid him potentially penetrating me. In the distance, we see the Ranger, so I'm going to start gliding toward the Ranger while I continue to harass the Colorado. My priority target takes up, and he's making a turn, so I do want to try and finish him before he completes the turn. Thankfully, I am able to with my massive DPM output. Furious sending, or Ranger, sorry. I've been calling it Furious this whole match, but it's in fact a Ranger. Popping my defensive fire consumable against the Ranger as I sector, he bumps into some flak, sadly for him, and his squadron gets instantly shredded, showing off the impressive flak damage of the Montpelier. If people fly into your flak, it is definitely very potent. Bring my light hull. So far, by being responsible in the early game and not recklessly charging out, I've been able to conserve my health. My hull as a light cruiser hull does not have that much armor, but We're on up to our 8th kill by now. Ranger continuing to send me planes, allowing me to earn my a defense expert as he's now the last one left.
Are on normal alert.
I'm gonna try and pull up to him in the far A cap and try and collect my 9th kill at this point. Now the Ranger, the tier 6 American cruiser, is extremely thinly armored, so thinly armored in fact that you can see me citadeling him over there using high explosive ammunition. Can't quite get a good read on his position. You can see him continuing to harass me with planes. I'm gonna go around the bottom side as my Akatsuki comes up the top side. Just checking to see the planes, sectoring of course, in order to reduce a damage up to 187,000 damage. Gonna see if I can crest 200,000. As we dispatch what's left of his meager squadrons. Not even bothering to dodge there, just trying to short the squadron, but really at 20,000 health I can afford to take one Ranger torpedo. I just really don't want to delay my progress toward the cap, switching to armor piercing against that thinly armored Ranger. His citadel is actually right here below the smokestack, so you want to aim a little further back so you can see me adjusting my aim rearwards as I find the range. He is slowing his momentum down. Akatsuki competing with me, but you can't really compete with the immense DPM of the Cleveland with just a Japanese gunboat destroyer. Or not even gunboat destroyer, but Japanese torpedo destroyer. Anyhow, so that wrapped up the game as we scored our 9th point. As you can see, it was quite the game, earning over 1 million credits, 9,000 experience, and 500 free experience, and a defense expert, Confederate, Kraken, First Blood, and High Caliber. Overall, by the end of the game, we did manage to breach 200,000 damage at 215,000 damage with the help of that Ranger kill at the end. 374 shell hits over the course of the game. We'll look at the shell distribution later because this is, of course, a replay, which is why I'm kind of reviewing these scorecards from using a saved screenshot. 43 plane kills, 5 incapacitations, 9 kills, 13 fires, 15 hits to the citadel, 14 defended ribbons, 1 assisted capture in the middle cap when we were fighting for it at B, 3 secondary hits, and 1 spotting ribbon. Team score wise, with 9 kills and 43 plane kills, I did manage to score 3,600 base experience, putting me almost 2,000 experience above the next highest earner. And with 3,600 base experience, this is in fact the current highest base experience for a Montpelier on the North American server as of the time of this recording in February of 2020. So that's quite exciting there. You can see I kind of hoarded the lion's share of the kills. All the kills are kind of concentrated at the top, and sadly some of the people who didn't contribute as much to the match are toward the bottom. Detailed report wise, 215,000. As a Cleveland / Montpelier, most of it is, of course, sorry about that. As I was saying though, as a Cleveland or Montpelier, most of the bulk of my damage did of course end up coming from high explosive shells. 321 shells fired for 133,000. But even though it's light cruiser AP, unlike the rather impressive AP of her heavy cruiser counterpart, the Baltimore, with her American super heavy shells, the AP is still perfectly serviceable if somewhat situational. So the 53 shells we did fire, a lot of which were citadels, if you recall, that Albemarle and also later the Ranger, we did score another 54,000 shell alpha. And then a tiny amount of secondary damage, which doesn't really matter, and then 26,000 fire damage. Anti-aircraft performance-wise, we destroyed 43 planes, remember? And of those planes, most of them are actually real planes, surprisingly. So that Ranger really had a thing out for us, but perhaps he shouldn't have, since he did lose what looks to be 39 actual aircraft, 15 fighters, 11 dive bombers, and 13 torpedo bombers is a large chunk of his aircraft hangar. And last but not least, just a glance at the economy. see what can happen when you have a great game. The Montpelier is, of course, a Tier 8 premium, and as such has Tier 8 premium economy, which means it earns a metric ton of credits. So in terms of net gains with a premium account, we earned 1 million account. This is, of course, using one economy flag, I want to say. Looks like we have a Zulu for plus 20% here. But other than that, not much else, and even without a premium account, we would have earned upwards of 600,000. And then experience-wise, not too many multipliers, just my base camo, the AL camo here, you can see. So yeah, there you have it. That was the AL Montpelier. One of my favorites for certain. The Cleveland, of course, is a completely free version of the Montpelier, which is actually in some aspects superior to the premium counterpart. So you can definitely get this kind of performance out of the Cleveland herself, but definitely a impressive game to show off. And as one of my favorite ships, of course, I do like playing her. And this, as the server highest space experience, was quite fun to show off in. Anyhow, just going to keep this short here. Just a fun game. 9 kills, of course, not something you come across every day. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you all later. Cheers.